Welcome to the For All Mankind recap. The series takes place in 1969, when the entire world watches television as a live feed of the first man walks on the moon, but it isn't from the US. Alexei, a cosmonaut from the Soviet Union. The series revolves around what would happen if the US wasn't the first on the moon. The Soviet Union sends the first woman to the moon. To combat this, Nixon requests that NASA build a base on the moon and places a woman inside it. There are scrimmages for the next Apollo astronauts. Molly Cobb is eventually chosen for the role as woman on board Apollo 15, also as the first American woman in space. On the moon, while digging, she finds lunar ice. The discovery leads to the creation of Jamestown, a mobile spaceship that is deemed to be the first NASA base on the moon. The destruction of Apollo 23 forces the stranding of Ed, Gordo, and Danielle in Jamestown on the moon. They are trapped, and day by day, their oxygen is fleeting. Gordo starts to lose it and imagines ants inside her suit, and he breaks protocol. To save Gordo's career, Danielle breaks her arm, requesting immediate medical services and rushing them out of Jamestown, leaving Ed alone on the Jamestown base. Margot, a flight controller, takes in revitalise to allow her to see the inner workings of NASA, and also because she is homeless. They work on a way to get Ed home. At home, Ed's wife Karen struggles as a single parent with their child Shane. Leaving their child unattended one day, Karen gets home to find that Shane is medically brain dead. She was hit on the bike outside. Reporting all of this to Ed, still isolated, he begins to spiral out of control. When he finds out that Ellen is coming on Apollo 24 to help him, they get onto the moon and Ed successfully returns home, where he can mourn the death with Karen. Ellen now waits aboard Jamestown, unable to reveal her real sexuality to the world. A time skip occurs where now it is in the 1980s. Karen now owns the Outpost, a restaurant that astronauts frequent. They have adopted a new daughter named Kelly, but upon more research, she reveals that she wants to join the Navy, which Ed is unreceptive to, scared to lose another child. But Karen convinces him to let her have a shot. Tech has advanced a broad distance since the finding of Luna. Margot is now the head of NASA, and Ellen is about to leave Jamestown. A solar cyst hits the moon, and Molly is hit with the brunt of it. With the impact of radiation on her eyes, she begins to lose her vision. Because of this, she is forced to return home. Ed is now a golfer and glued to his desk. Danielle wants to get back up into space, and Gordo has had a change of pace. Ed rounds up the crew, convincing them to come back, and Danielle is happy to, but Gordo struggles in other ways. His ex-wife Tracy is sort of an idol, and travels back to a larger base of Jamestown. As the Cold War tensions are rising, they accelerate more after Soviets shoot down a passenger plane with American crew members on board. As a cherry on top, they take over their lunar digging site on the moon. To combat this, they send armed Marines to get their site back. On Earth, Gordo decides to get in shape to hopefully win back his wife Tracy, who is now married to Sam Cleveland, an entrepreneur and investor. Meanwhile, NASA and Soviets create an alliance to work together in their goal in space, but with their alliance comes connections, some that go a little deeper than expected. Between Margot and Sergei, Karen enjoys her job at the Outpost a little too much, dancing in the basement whilst with Danny Stevens, an employee. As tensions begin to brew, their relationship starts to become an affair. On the moon, warfare starts and bullets fly everywhere in Jamestown, one of which hit the cooling pump of a nuclear reactor, starting a timer for the death of everyone on the moon. Long story short, Gordo and Tracy, forced to work together after their long marriage, they make a long and hard trek out as their oxygen starts to deplete to finally save all of the residents on Jamestown from combustion. But as they make it back to base, they die from exposure on the lunar surface. In space, Danielle goes rogue and disobeys direct orders from above. She docks with the Soyuz. They shake hands to commiserate the continued alliance between the Soviets and NASA. It is now 1992. The USSR has just announced that they will be the first on Mars. However, NASA is still deciding who they want to pick for the leader of the Mars mission. Karen is now the owner of the Polaris Hotel, an orbiting hotel in space. Danny and Amber get married on the hotel. On Earth, Margot continues contacting Sergei, helping each other in high-profile cases. When the call ends, Sergei is instructed by a superior to keep extracting information from her. Outside the hotel, debris causes a thruster to explode. When they try to fix it, crew members are killed. While this is happening, the group tries to move everyone into safety through an elevator, but Sam, Karen's new husband, dies as a result of this. Danny closes the thrusters and saves everyone's lives. After getting a lucrative deal from Dev Ayesa, owner of Helios, Karen decides to sell her Polaris hotel to him for his Mars mission. Angry that Molly appointed Ed as the leader of the Mars mission, Margot fires her and demotes Ed, promoting Danielle to leader. Meanwhile, Ellen selects Governor Bragg for her campaign as President of the United States. Karen urges Dev to select Ed as the leader, and they go on to show Helios' involvement in the Mars mission, revealing it to the world. Helios convinces Danny Stevens to come work for them. He was fired after heavy drinking on the job. Margot is coerced into giving up to NASA's nuclear engine blueprints after they threaten Sergei's life. Returning to work, she finds out that Bill is also going to work for Helios. 2 years later, Helios, NASA, and the Soviets launch for the voyage to Mars. In last place, the Russians push their nuclear engines to the limit, foregoing any power, activating the law whereby NASA or Helios have to come to their aid. NASA obliges to help and loses the race to Helios. As a result of this, Margot meets with Kardashian, a Soviet representative, but she doesn't stop blackmailing her for more information. She agrees on the census that she gets to work with Sergei again. When she finds out about his arrest, threats against his family, and she promises to try and help them. Helios is unable to land due to a brewing storm on Mars, allowing NASA to catch up. Rosales finds incriminating evidence that Soviets are stealing blueprints, but Margot gives her false assurances that she will try to look into it when she is ready. Deploying pods at the same time, they pull back in fear of crashing, meaning that NASA landed on Mars first. Several weeks later, all of the teams have landed on Mars and are looking for resources to survive. Helios has been lucky finding pockets of ice, which can be used as methane to transfer them home. In contrast, the Soviets and NASA's haven't found anything, and on top of that, their resources are depreciating fast, with resources meant for 6 shared by 8 after rescuing the Soviets. At NASA, Margot searches for a way to release Sergei's family. On the Sojourner, Will Tyler makes a video publicly professing his homosexuality in the military. This makes it to front pages of news outlets, and President Ellen, yes, the new president, is forced to discharge him. Kelly and Alexei are also secretly dating. You might be questioning how Kelly is on the craft. Well, she ended up becoming a scientist and got invited by Ed, initially when Molly invited him, but when news broke that he was demoted, she asked Danielle to be biologist on board. Helios meets with the Soviet, revealing a liquid reservoir they can drill for. After the agreement is settled, Edward delivers the supplies. Because Helios and the Soviets are working together, Sergei is forced to leave Margot. Rosales unrelent in her pursuit to try and find out how the blueprints were leaked, leading her to begin suspecting Margot after she is disinterested once again. On Mars, they prepare to begin drilling. Danny is forced to watch the control room, losing focus and sabotaging the entire operation, putting the drilling teams in danger and injuring Edward in the process. The drilling impact causes a landslide, trapping astronauts that tried to save Edward. Alexei digs himself out of the rubble, finding survivors and others that didn't make it. Given the situation, NASA, Helios, and the Soviets decide to work together to find all the remaining survivors, finding Edward and Anthony in an airlock. After their copious adventures out to gather survivors, Alexei passes away due to an unforeseen head injury caused by the landslide. Maya and Kuznetsov, Soviet crewmates, find out Kelly is pregnant with Alexei's baby. 5 months have passed since the landslide. The teams have progressed in drilling and Kelly is almost due for labor. They suspect that she might have to give birth on the aircraft. On Earth, Ellen, as the new president, is blackmailed with the exposure that her husband is also homosexual. Thinking on how to react, she is forced to reveal to the world that she is in fact a lesbian. Fed up with the lies, Revitalise discloses the fact that Margot is a spy for the Soviets, but she only shows this to Bill, which he wants them to work with the FBI to expose this to the public. But upon including an FBI agent, Revitalise backtracks and decides not to help. At Helios headquarters, Dev wants to invest more into the Phoenix operation, basically the Mars trip. However, the board members are against this. They've been losing money due to all the casualties. Karen wants them to sell Phoenix to NASA and is quickly shut down by Dev. But getting wind of this, a different board member hatches a plan to fire Dev and reinstate her as CEO. On Mars, Danielle and Kuznetsov track out to a landing site to see what they can scavenge when they are confronted by a North Korean soldier. In the ship, Kelly passes out. It is revealed that Lee Jun-jil, the North Korean astronaut, was the first man on Mars, but upon their arrival, his partner had died and he was unable to contact his country. Back to the moment, they are able to overpower him and take him back to the ship. On Earth, Ellen is advised to resign before impeachment, but upon this, she refuses. On NASA's base, Kelly is succumbed to a dilemma. If she doesn't give birth in 24 hours, she will lose the baby and herself. They agree to combine forces and use the remaining fuel to propel Kelly to safety. Upon his arrival, Danny admits that he was the one to blame for all their casualties. Furious, Edward exiles him to the North Korean landing site. Hearing of the FBI closing in on her, Katashay agrees to help Margot. At Helios headquarters, Jimmy finds out his friends are planning to blow up NASA's headquarters. Hearing of this, Karen tries to alert security, but it is too late. The bomb goes off, killing Karen and Molly in the process. Kelly is able to successfully deliver her baby. In 2003, defector Margot is now living in Russia. This is where the series ends. For a series with a similar sad ending, watch this.